So what is really going on in the real estate market? It is the end of November 2025, and while I'm going to make this video, I realize that the information that I share is going to become outdated. And when you do videos, you shouldn't necessarily have outdated videos or have content that is going to become outdated. But I think this is such an important subject that I want to have a conversation about it and at least let you know what I see. So I've been a real estate agent I'm starting my 21st year. So 20 solid years, full-time real estate. I have never seen a market like this. It seems kind of nutty to me, but it's not because the market's bad. Our market here in Charleston, South Carolina is doing very well. Numbers are up, sales are good, sales prices are up, and houses are selling. But there's so much more to just the numbers, and that's what's important here. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, not numbers, but the reality of what is actually happening. So the truth of the matter is real estate agents are working 2, 3, even 4 times harder than they have been. And the reason that is because houses are taking longer to sell, but expectations out there are they're not, buyers and sellers' expectations do not match. And we have this divisive aura about where we are in general here in the United States. At least I feel that way. And so I think people aren't communicating well and they're not talking about things. It's kind of like my way or the highway. And I do see that in real estate, but I think it's because of a lot of factors, and it's showing up in real estate too. So the reason why I think we're working harder is because we are getting, at least I can speak from my network of agents. I am seeing 2 and 3 offers on a house that's on the market, and it's not getting to contract, or it's under contract and that contract will fall apart. So we're going through the offer process. We're writing offers. Both buyers are writing offers, seller agents are receiving the offers and going over them with our clients. And we're spending time doing that multiple times for one transaction. Whereas in the past, you would get an offer, you would negotiate it out, there's give and take. Sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes contracts fall apart, and that's fine. But now it's like literally we're going through this process many times during a listing period. So that's one thing. Agents, both buyers and seller agents, are just working extra hard because we're writing these offers and they're not going through. So it might take, in some cases, 4 offers before it sticks. And that sticking is about not just price, but it's about time frame. It's about terms. It's about people putting the right money down and making sellers feel like they definitely want their house. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, not just price. But if you can't agree on price and you can't agree on terms, the whole thing's gone. If you agree on price and someone says, I have to be moved in 30 days, and the seller's like, I can't, there's no way, I need at least 45 to 60 days, it's not going to work. Sellers are putting their houses on the market thinking it might take a little longer to sell, and in some cases they're selling fast. So that is what is happening, and I think everyone's on edge. Negotiations are tough, and negotiations are tough for multiple reasons. It's like a big squirrel. I could go into this whole story. So buyers think it's 2008, and sellers feel like it's 2022. So 2022, the market was so hot. It was a great market if you were a seller, not so great if you were a buyer. And I personally, as an agent, it wasn't a great market. It was craziness. We couldn't even breathe. You want to help people, your offers aren't getting accepted. Anyway, offers are coming in like mad, and houses are selling. 15 offers in 6 hours. That's what was happening in 2022. In 2008, the market tanked and we had that great recession of a mortgage industry, basically. And so now that the market has is shifting, I feel like here in Charleston, we're balancing, right? I don't see any big problems. People want to move here. We just made another, I think we're number 4 on where people want to move as of last week in the United States. So I think our market's great. However, buyers know it has changed. It's not hot anymore. Sellers, if they're not made aware of what's going on by their agent, or if they just don't want to hear what they're being told by the professionals in the industry, they think it's still hot. So if you're sitting on the market and you're on the market for 45 days, neighbors are thinking, gosh, what's going on? I'll get back to that point in a minute. However, so negotiations are tough because you've got the buyer who thinks the market's tanking and the seller who thinks the market's hot. The seller who thinks the market's hot feels like their house should be priced even higher than it is. They think the market shouldn't be falling, and they know their neighbor's house sold for X a year ago. Even though theirs is not in the same condition as their neighbor's, they still want more. And that's just not working. So you've got a seller thinking their house is worth more. A buyer thinks that, especially if they're coming in from out of state, they think the market's falling apart here because it might be where they are, but it's not falling apart here. So you just have different ideas of what's going on. And because we have so many people still coming here from out of state, they only know the market that they're coming from, or they know what happened with the sale of their home up in their area, but it's different here. So it becomes a really tough thing to kind of navigate for these people, like what's going on in Charleston. So that's another factor. Negotiations I'm seeing right now, almost every single listing of mine has gotten multiple offers, not at the same time, but through the listing period. And most have gotten an offer that comes in low. The seller counters with a reasonable counter price, and the buyer says no thanks and just walks away. So then you just have a seller who's upset at that point. They're like, oh, buyers are unreasonable. So now their expectation is that no buyer is going to be reasonable. It just starts the whole thing off poorly. I really don't understand why a buyer would come in so low on day 5, 150,000 off, and think that they're going to get it for that price. If they don't, they walk. That is wasting everyone's time. I do understand wanting a deal, of course. I just bought actually 2 houses. So I understand wanting a deal and wanting to pay the right price in a market where we're not sure what's happening. I get that. But if you want a house after it's been on the market a very short period of time, chances are other people do too, and other offers would come in. So these buyers coming in so low sets the tone off negatively, and it doesn't go well. So the other piece to this is people don't feel like the market is normal. I had a vendor actually say to me last week, I can't wait till the market gets back to normal. And I thought, what's normal? Like, real estate's always changing. So because nothing feels normal, I think that makes buyers and sellers feel on edge. So my biggest thing here is, in Charleston, South Carolina, if you are putting an offer in on a house, definitely you want a deal, try to get a little off the house. If you feel that that's what you want to do and that's what the comps are telling you, definitely work towards that. I don't want anyone to shy away from putting in lower offers. But what I do want to say is put in reasonable offers so that the seller actually has something to work with. I had an offer from an agent who put the offer in right away. 150 off list price, 3-month close, no due diligence termination fee. They wanted 30 days of due diligence, which means the house is off the market for 30 days. And then they didn't want to pay a fee if they backed out. And like I said, it was 150 under list price. Why would the seller take that? It doesn't make any sense. And then the seller was like, absolutely not. And the agent said to me, well, Lauren, this is supposed to start a conversation. Now, I have been in the industry a long time, And I am actually a real estate negotiation expert. I took the classes, I got my certification, and I can tell you that an offer like that does not get a buyer and seller talking. It basically closes the door and it becomes an iron door, and that buyer's out. They're not going to get a response. Even though I always tell my sellers, you should respond to every offer. But in this case, it was like we didn't have anything to work with, not terms, not price. So that is what is going on in the market. And I think that some of this, and not all, of course, but you've got agents who came into the marketplace when the market was hot. So they're not used to a challenging market. The challenge then was getting people in to see houses, getting offer accepted. So they learned different challenges, but they haven't learned what this market's like. And back in 2019, before the boom, I mean, houses could sit on the market 2-3 months. That was completely normal. So now, if a house has been sitting on the market a long time, people think a long time, 2 months, it's not that long. Yeah, 2 months is a little over the average, but average of 45 days, that means a lot of houses sit for longer than that. So that being said, it goes back to expectations, right? If a buyer thinks that the market is tanking, but it's been on the market 45 days, they think that's forever. It's not. If the seller thinks every buyer wants to come in 150,000 under list price, they're not going to be negotiating. It just creates that divisive nature. And that's really what's happening in this market. Agents, like I said, who aren't educated on this market and don't have a lot of experience, I think that they're not sure what to do. And guiding your client is really important. Having that sense of calm, understanding what's going on, that is so important because we can't feel the frustrations of our clients. We have to be able to negotiate fairly and evenly. The next point that I want to make is when you are in a neighborhood and your neighbor's house doesn't sell, or you think it doesn't sell because it's been on the market for a while, that doesn't mean that the house has not gotten offers, had a lot of interest. It means that actually a deal hasn't been made. And I think in the past, people think that if a house isn't under contract, it's not selling. So I just want to make that little note that I have had several houses this year who have come off the market because they got offers. It just wasn't the offer they wanted. And so they continued to leave it on the market to try to get what they wanted, and they never did. So it came off the market. That doesn't mean that the market is flat. It doesn't mean that houses aren't appealing, or that nobody wants the house, or that you can come in really low because it didn't sell. When you get 4 offers, you know your house is a commodity. It's just finding the right price for the house. So that's something else I want to point out. As a consumer, when you're looking at a house that sat on the market for quite some time, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know how many offers they've had. You don't know how many showings they've had. You don't know if the offers didn't go through. Was it for price, or was it because the terms weren't right? It could be anything. So I think that's another takeaway from this message is just because something doesn't sell doesn't mean it wasn't wanted or that something was wrong with it. It just means the terms didn't line up for buyer and seller. Like I said, buyers' expectations and sellers are not matching up. Finally, last point I want to make is, why is this happening? Why is everything so strenuous between buyers and sellers and getting houses under contract? Here's what I know to be true. Interest rates are not high, but they're high compared to how they were in 2022. If you're at a 6.5% interest rate, that feels really high to us right now. Overall, it's not, but it's a lot higher than 3%. And our prices are up. Our prices are still up 5%, 6% over last year. So buyers are coming in at the highest price point we've seen with high interest rates. So affordability is out the window. So when they're looking at a house, and our average sales price right now is about 1.1 million. I mean, there's a time that 1.1 million was like mansion. It's not that anymore. So people are happy they have this money to spend, but then are realizing that it's not a lot of money. It's not taking them where they want to be. And their mortgage payments are so high. So if they have paid top dollar and their mortgage payment is very high, they don't want the house in a condition that they have to come in and do work. And in some of these cases, houses do require work for the $1.2 million. Maybe the house is in great condition, but it's not updated. But a lot of buyers don't want to pay $1.2 million for a non-updated house. And that is where part of this problem lies. You come in, the buyer pays $1.2 million, everything's top of the line, everything's newer, things are bright, everything's updated. It feels so good. They're excited. They get to post it on Instagram. I have dubbed it Insta Perfect. They are happy to pay that money because they don't have to spend their weekends doing projects or calling contractors, living through renovations. But that's just not the case right now. There's a lot of neighborhoods where the houses are great, but they might need some work because they're starting to get older. And those neighborhoods are competing with newer neighborhoods. So that's also where the discrepancy between what a buyer wants and a seller wants is not coming together. And I think it's important to understand why buyers want what they want, because let's be honest, I would want the same. If I'm paying top dollar, I don't want to replace every light fixture in the house. If I'm paying $1.3, $1.4 million, why do I want to change out the doorknobs? I don't. And that's what buyers are thinking. So while this video is going to become outdated, I think it's so important to understand that I do know what's going on in the market and I do understand it really well. It's just a matter of getting everybody's minds to match up, to get everyone communicating, buyers to make good offers and fair offers, sellers to be willing to negotiate. And if everyone could just not be so high stress, everything will work out a lot better. But in the meantime, we're high stress and everybody's clinging to their money because of uncertainty out there. It's all going to be okay. But I hope this video shows you why the market is doing what it's doing and tells you a little bit about the Charleston real estate market here, November 2025. Thank you so much for listening. If you've gotten to the end of this video, I do feel like it rambles a bit, but at the same point, these are all very true things that I'm talking about, and it is a glimpse into my daily life. Talk to you soon.